Okay, this video is about how to resume and pause sound. So, say if you want a character to shoot long down the road, like he's down the far end of the game, but you don't want him to keep you don't want to keep hearing the sound where he's shooting the weapon out and you haven't gotten to him yet. So this is one way to like mute out sound by pausing it until you reach him, and then once you reach the character with the weapon, then you can hear the sound. So closer, hear the sound, then it goes away. So that's one way to like, because I know like the old Nintendo Contra game, the bad guys would shoot a weapon out, but you wouldn't hear the sound. Your weapon would fire and you would hear the sound, but the bad guys, they would fire, you wouldn't hear a sound. But but in this situation, if you want to have the bad guy have a sound when he's firing the weapon, but you don't want it to happen until you get close to him, that's how you can do it. You can resume and pause sound. I'm going to show you how to do that, and I've also got this set up for Android with the buttons here. Gotta test that out. So let me show you how to do this. So in the character here, okay, so go to the room. Okay, so this yellow area right here is the area where it's not going to make a sound. Once the character leaves the yellow area, so all I did was stretch this out, because you can do this with Game Maker Studio. You can stretch it out. Take a small sliver, make a small sliver, and you can stretch it out. That's how you can pretty much save file space, you know, by stretching it. You can also, and I've also talked about this, you can change the color of it too, by just going to color here and choosing the color, and it changes the color. You don't have to worry about making another image and making it that color. So that's another way you can do a shortcut. Two shortcuts here, stretching it out. So you can take this line here and stretch it out, see? And then you can change the color. So there's two shortcuts there in this one video. Alright, so this guy right here, he's firing the weapon, but once he hits this line here, he bounces off of it, and then once he hits this line, he bounces off this and moves back and forth. You can also do this by using a timer, but a timer you really have to like you know, keep testing it out, see how far he's going to go, and then time kicks in and he goes back the other direction. So with the lines here, it makes it a little more easier, and you can confine it where you want it at exactly without having to test it out every time versus a timer. So once he leaves this area right here and goes out here, that's when the sound kicks in. Once he hits this green area here, it pauses the sound. So let's see. Now the only thing is, when I change the color here in the room, it doesn't change the color of the block here. So that's the only drawback. So it's called Start Sound. Start Sound was originally yellow. Okay, so it's going to play the fire sound. And I got the fire sound here. So go to main 1 tab and drag over fire sound, say fire, loop, false, because you don't want to keep it looping unless you have a background sound, then you want to loop. Alright, and so that's that set up there. The start sound. So when the player crosses the start sound block by doing collision with start sound, then you have a coded sheet here. Drag over a coded sheet from the control tab. This is your code that's going to say if keyboard _check _release V key no key. So if no key is pressed, then you want to pause the sound. So when you first start the game and you don't have your fingers on the buttons, it's going to play no sound whatsoever. That's what it's saying here. So V key no key means that there's no button pressed, no keyboard button pressed, no Android button pressed. Because I have that set up for Android virtual keys, you use the keyboard commands for your Android device. I talked about that already, but I'll go into detail. I'll show you what I'm talking about. But the virtual keys use the keyboard keys, code, and for it to work for the Android as well. So, like I said, with no V key, with no buttons pressed, it's going to pause the sound. So it's going to pause the fire sound. That's what this is talking about here. And then, okay, this stopper 2 is this line right here. So when I hit this line, then I'm not going to move. So move free, direction 0, speed 0, and I got that from the move tab here. I didn't use the move fix because he sometimes gets stuck, and so the move free works better. So just make sure the direction 0, speed 0, and he will stop at that square, which is this right here that is stretched out, and change the color on. So when he moves left, he'll go left 10 speed. Moves right, goes right 10 speed. Release, he stops. That's move fixed. Release right, he stops. And then down, I don't know why I have a down there. I don't need a down. I think I was messing with that earlier, but decided not to use the down or up. So just the right and left. Move right and left. Okay, so so now when he moves out of that yellow area there, well, I think it's going to play the sound. Let me get rid of this real quick. Let me try this out. Okay. So basically, the sound's going to keep constantly playing. See, if I took this square out, then the sound plays on the weapon. Once he's inside the block, then it's going to pause the sound. So it's not going to play the sound. So once you leave that area, it's going to play the sound. Just like what I did a minute ago. I deleted the square, which tells. When I delete the square, it's going to play the sound because he's not inside the square anymore. Because when he's inside the square, it pauses the sound. Like I'm going to show again. So it completely unpauses the sound because he has left the square. So when you leave the square, it plays the sound. When you're in the square, it pauses the sound. So wherever you want, you can have it right here if you wanted to, so when he leaves the square right here, then it plays the sound. So it depends on how close you get. So that's why I made mine way out here. So because, with sound, you don't really hear it until you get really close to the character. So that's why I stretched this box out way over here. But if you wanted to hear the sound of the character shooting out the weapon, then you can set it up right here. So once he leaves the square there, it plays the sound. Now it stops the sound. So that's how you play the sound and stop the sound, or not stop the sound, but pause the sound pretty much. Because you really don't want to stop it. You want to pause it. I mean, I guess you could potentially stop it if you wanted to, but I think you probably can change that to stop sound. Let's try that, see what that does, because it's up to you. It seems like maybe the stop sound may be better, Well, no, it kind of stutters there on the sound a little bit. So you can either use the pause or the stop. It's up to you. So I'll leave both those codes in there. So I'll grade this out, copy this, grade this out, paste this, and then say pause. There's other ways you can do it too. I watched another video on how to do how to play and stop sound, or pause sound basically, and there was using the VOL, where you press the arrow button to you're pretty much turning the dial up to hear it louder, turning the dial down to not hear it. There was a code for that online that I looked at on YouTube, but it didn't seem to work right because it messed with all the sounds. So it messed with the background sound, it messed with the sound of the weapon. It turns everything off, or it turns everything on. It doesn't just do one single sound. So that's why I use the stop or pause, because it does the specific sound that you want to pause and resume. With that VOL volume, because VOL stands for volume for the code, it did all the sound. When you turned it down, when you turned it up, it did the background sound, it turned that down, it turned the weapon sound down, it did everything. So I didn't like that. I was trying to focus on one particular sound that I wanted to pause and resume. So this code seems to work for stop or pause, and that's for for the computer or the Android device. But there, like you said, there is a kind of glitch where it kind of stutters there a little bit, then stops or pauses and then resumes when you get out. It kind of stutters a little bit. So it's up to you. The way I do mine is a little more complex a little bit, because I use placeholders. So I don't have the character firing anything until I cross a line. Like if I cross this line right here, the placeholder will switch to the actual character, and then he'll start running back and forth and shooting his weapon. And then when I cross another line, when I pass him, if I don't kill him, then he would either like switch back to a placeholder, or I'll just destroy him, you know what I'm saying, and come back. So that's how I do my characters, which takes up more image space, but it seems like it works the best. But it takes more time. It's more time consuming, and I may go this method. I don't know, but this is how you pause and resume sound, or you can stop and start sound if you wanted to. And then, like I said, the bullet has the firing in there, so it has the firing sound, and then after the alarm 10 kicks in, main 2 tab, then it's going to be destroyed. So it only goes so far, and then it gets destroyed. It's with any weapon, it depends on how powerful the weapon is, but after 10 milliseconds, it's going to be destroyed. And then it's going to play again, and it's going to be destroyed after 10 milliseconds. And then this is the S emitter. I don't know why I called it that, but it's the bad guy. So once alarm 0 kicks in at 1 millisecond, then it's going to fire the weapon, the bullet, the direction at 180. That's going left at 10 speed. Make sure it's set to relative, so it's going to be shooting in this area right here where the relative's at. The crosshairs going to shoot right in this location. Shoot in this location. X and Y coordinates 16, 16. Then after alarm 1, it's going to kick in at 5 milliseconds, and then it's going to jump back to alarm 0 at 10 milliseconds, and then it's going to repeat and shoot the fire weapon again. It's going to go back to alarm 1, and it's going to stop for 10 milliseconds. It's going to stop for 5 milliseconds, and then I guess it's going to stop again for another 10 seconds, and then it's going to go 10 milliseconds, and it's going to go back to 0 and fire again. So if you wanted him to shoot faster, and quicker, then you would change this to like 5 milliseconds or 3 milliseconds, and then he would shoot faster, and it won't be so much lag time. in the step event. Okay, and this right here, okay, so in the step event for the emitter, I have resume fire. I'm trying to think if that's really, does that really matter? And see, it's for the object player. So when I press the right key, then it's going to resume fire, but that's only if I'm outside the square. I don't know this key. I don't know if this really matters now. Let me double check. Yeah. No, it doesn't. Yeah, it kind of does. You have to have that resume in there because it doesn't work. Well, it works, but it kind of doesn't work. So, in the step event for the S emitter, you have to have this code in here to resume the sound, because your pause in this box here. You know, and so it has to, you're trying to force the sound to play again once you press the V key. So when you press the V key right, it's going to resume the fire on the object player in the step event. So that's forcing the sound to play again. And right here, you probably, if you're going to use the stop sound, you probably may use the play sound instead of the resume. I guess I don't know if it really matters so much, but I guess. So if you're going to use the pause, then I would use the resume. If you're going to use the stop sound, then use the play sound. And then, yeah, when the S emitter hits, this was blue, I changed it to red. Once it hits this square, then it's going to go in reverse. Left press, I don't know why that's in there. Let me take that out. I don't think that's necessary. And this is called the bounce. And the bounce doesn't have to be solid, okay. I don't know why that left press is in there. Looks fine. Okay, so that's it. That's how you do it. That's how you resume. Oh, and then the one other thing is the buttons. Button right, add event, other, room start. Probably use game start or room start. Don't use create. Room start, then you drag over a coded sheet. I've already talked about virtual keys, but name it. I named mine R key equals virtual key 250 by 700. So this is the X and Y coordinates here. The 100 by 100, that's how big the button's going to be. And then it's called V key right. And then I put mine, you want to hide the virtual key. You could say show virtual key, but I want to hide it because I don't want to see the white box. Because there's another white box that goes on top of this, which is the color of virtual keys for Game Maker Studio. It's always white. Not really color, of course, but it's white. It stays white. You can't change the color on that. And then make sure it's called the same here as up here. R key matches that, R key matches that. And so this is the alignment of where the virtual key is going to be out on the image of the object. So of course this image of the object, you make this a button if you want. Make it look more fancy than this. But the actual virtual key color is white and it's square. But right now I have it hidden so you can't see it. And then you need also GUI on there, which is however your room size is, however big it is, you want to make sure it's that size. So 640 by 480 is my room size. Make sure it's that, the right size and width and height of your room, because if you don't have the right width and height of the room, the virtual key is going to be off. So you can align it all you want, but if your H view and W view is not correct, then it's not going to be aligned correctly on the button. So make sure that whatever your room height and width is, make sure it matches here in the GUI, otherwise it's going to be off the virtual key. Visible for the image of the button, depth -50, same concept with the button left, virtual key, but of course it's going to be in different locations, X 50, Y 700, and then the height and width of how big you want the virtual key is 100, V key left, which is talking about the keyboard, but this also works for your Android device when you have to use keyboard keys to make it work for Android. And then I have a hidden, L stands for left key, that has to match there, left key, and that's the virtual key. That's how you do the virtual keys there. And then you have the GUI, same concept, same height and width as the room. If you don't have the right height and width of the room, if this was like 540 by 380, then it would be unaligned. It won't look. It'll be off on the button. So when you're pressing down the image of the button, it's not going to move because the virtual key is off on the button. It's not there on the button anymore. And just make sure that matches, and I think that's it. Bounce, stopper. Oh, and the stopper I made it solid. So the stopper here, I made the solid. If you don't make it solid, then he'll go through it. But for the bounce, for the character, I didn't need to make the bounce solid for some reason. But if I make that solid for the bounce, then when I try to move to the bounce area, I'm going to stop here for some reason. So it cannot be solid. Alright, and the sound is normal, it's just imported in. Right click and create sound. And that's it. And it's not an MP3, it's a WAV file. But you can use MP3s if you wanted to. Alright, thanks for watching.